Over the years, many games have come and gone, some singing songs of their success and others lamenting at their downfall. So recently, a friend passed me a game called Azure Striker Gunvolt. He told me, oh, it's like a J-pop version of Megaman, and I decided to try the sucker out. Today, I give you my thoughts about Gunvolt, and after playing it for a good while, I have a few choice things to say about this Megaman wannabe. Set in a futuristic version of our universe, we're met with a new race of people called Adepts. Adepts are people with a special power called Septimal Power, which allows them to enact supernatural abilities such as the ability to use the elements of fire, lightning, or even gravity itself. With these powers present, people grow worried over the effects these people will have on society. But an organization known as the Sumeragi Group came in and governed over the Adepts, attaining world peace. However, the Sumeragi Group has a greater motive in place. They seek to experiment on Adepts and use their powers for themselves, and that's where you come in. You're Gunvolt, an agent for a rebel faction named Quill, which banded together to expose the Sumeragi Group's evil intentions to the masses. Neat premise, right? I thought so too, but I'll save my thoughts on the story for later. In this game, we follow two characters, Gunvolt and Jules. Gunvolt is an adept with power over the element of lightning. He's very straightforward and hardworking, but also a tad bit soft despite the line of work he's in. He's also very quick-witted and doesn't blindly follow orders given to him. If I had to describe Gunvolt, I'd say he's much like a cop who takes his job quite seriously and overthinks what's right and wrong. Gunvolt is also very young, and his emotions are often a factor in his decisions as well, causing tension between him and his subordinates at times. Jules is also an adept who houses a special septimal power. Her ability allows her to resonate with adepts and boost their power. But the dark side to her power is that she can also control adepts if she so pleases. Jules is quite shy and naive, but she's also quite loyal to Gunvolt. There isn't much to say about the characters, they're pretty much self-explanatory and easily fall into the tropes set by earlier games of the same nature. Moving along, it's time to talk about the core to any video game, the gameplay. Azure Striker Gunvolt is, for better words, a Megaman clone. You're in a side-scrolling environment in which you will either go from left to right and shoot your way through the enemies as you make your way to the goal. However, what makes it different is the way you shoot and eliminate the targets. Gunvolt uses a special type of gun that tags the enemy, which can stack up to 3 times. Depending how many times you tag the enemy, Gunvolt's lightning ability will do more damage to the target, and the tags act as a homing beacon for them to cling onto. Basically, you want to tag your enemy as much as possible, and then use the homing ability and drain the HP quickly. Aside from that, you can also use special abilities that act as a limit break, so to speak, which nets you a large amount of damage at the cost of your special bar in the bottom corner of your screen. There are multiple special attacks that you can collect throughout the game from levels and other means, and each reacts differently. Some do AoE damage, and some even heal your character. But depending on the type of special, it may require more charges of your gauge, so it's best to plan out how you want to use these attacks and formulate your strategy ahead of time. The gameplay is pretty basic and easy to pick up, which makes the game easily accessible. However, if there's one thing that's paramount to me in any game, it's the soundtrack. The music in a game is what gives it life, and Azure Striker Gunvolt unfortunately doesn't have a good variety to choose from. The soundtrack is very bland and repetitive, and I feel like it tried to emulate Megaman, but instead only served to create a very lackluster set of pieces that begin to grate on you as the game progresses. The only notable soundtrack is when Lumen uses her special on you in the event of your death, in which case, J-pop begins to play and the game begins to pick up speed for a short while, but it's not something you see often, and after you listen to the track and return to the soundtrack, you're just left with the repetitive motions from before. Let's slide over to the flaws of Azure Striker Gunvolt, and honestly, there are quite a few. When starting a new game, you're not prompted with a difficulty selector when the game does in fact have 3 modes: easy, normal, and hard. Instead, when you press new game, you're immediately thrust into normal mode. Normally, that's fine with me, but this game is actually very brutal and unforgiving. When you're getting used to the combat and mechanics of enemies, you're often thrown against a boss that'll just wreck you. And at first it's fine because that's what I expect from these kind of games. But when every boss is able to just destroy you from the get-go, you have an issue afoot. It's not very fun to just die to a painfully unfair boss over and over. Other than that, the gameplay is very uninspired. It's very basic and gets boring quickly as you go through the same objectives over and over. In Megaman, the way it spiced itself up was through the use of power-ups, which allowed you to go back to levels and use your new abilities to find secrets or other locations. In Azure Striker Gunvolt, you don't really get that exploration other than a fetch quest that you do in each level for Jules. The lack of any notable gameplay changes makes the game look lazy and doesn't exactly invite the players to keep going. While we're on the topic of lazy, let's talk about the story, or rather, the lack thereof story. The game starts out strong and then immediately loses itself and becomes a very watered down story about Gunvolt and Jewel, with everything being very predictable because of how cliche it is. It didn't give me anything new and was easily forgettable. One major problem I have with Azure Striker Gunvolt, and I never thought I'd say this about a side-scroller shooter, is that I have to grind levels. When did this become a JRPG? Grinding close to 30 levels so that I can do something important in the game is downright ludicrous. And before you tell me that this is an indie game and it will have mistakes, that's no excuse. We don't let AAA titles get away with this kind of game, so why should we let indie programmers who want to join the ranks of AAA titles get away with this? It sets a bad example and enables them to continue creating games that are just not fun. Azure Striker Gunvolt at first glance looks to be an interesting title, but as I delved deeper, all I found was disappointment, and here's why. The pros and cons of Azure Striker Gunvolt. Thinking of pros, I would say that Azure Striker Gunvolt has good visuals and JPOP, I guess? I wasn't able to really think about too many pros. On the con side though, we have a plain and boring story, trope characters that have been done to death, stale music, uninspired gameplay, and the game is just too grindy for the small reward. Azure Striker Gunvolt is not a good game, and even though people seem to like it for their own reasons, I can't say that I do. There's so much that could be developed further, and I hope for the release of the second game that it does go further and explore more features and grow. However, if you want to experience a side-scroller shooter, I definitely recommend any of the Megaman series. I'm sure most of you have played these games, but for those who haven't, I sincerely ask that you take the time and try them out, and see for yourself why I appreciate this genre. Hey everyone, I'm TheKasaPuppy and thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. I upload a new video every other Tuesday, and if you have a suggestion on games you'd like me to review, please comment on either my Twitter or the comment section and I'll take them into great consideration.